there, so you'll get your chance. Okay. And my video just went away just as I went live. Fantastic. Let's see if that comes back.
Well, I still see you, so we're good to go.
Oh, there we go. Now I'm back. Okay.
Yes, I still see you, so.
Awesome. So we'll count this one down. 3, 2. Hockey fans, welcome back to Sports Kings. I know it's been a long time, but we're getting Kings of the Rink back up and going. We got the same cast as usual. My name is Joe, and I'm hosting this show. You can check out our website at sports-kings.com/aroundtherink. Throw us a follow on Twitter at ATRSportsKings. We all love hockey. We know you love hockey, so we love you following us. With us as always, we got the same crew. Starting to think these guys are getting a little familiar, like they're sticking around too long. We got Michael and Kelvin with us. Guys, how you doing today?
Doing good.
I swear you guys are following me, man. It's like, am I being punked?
It's like I go to sleep and you guys are in my. It's like I go to sleep and you guys are here. And now I wake up.
Shout out to Ashton Kutcher because he's probably gonna pop out in the next few minutes and be like, "Hey, you guys are punked."
Oh my God! There you go. Oh wait, no, there's nobody there.
So we'll get right into this because the NHL second round is starting up right now in the Stanley Cup playoffs. There was actually a lot of news that took place on the brief period in between. So we'll try to quick fire through all of them, and then we'll get you up to speed on the playoffs. Vancouver Canucks, they're a pretty big mess right now. They brought back Trevor Linden, a longtime team captain, real legend up there in Vancouver to be the team president. They fired Mike Ellis before they brought Linden back in. And Linden's now completed the cleansing of the regime, and John Tortorella only gets a year in Vancouver, where they finished 25th in the league, and now he's out looking for a new job. So we'll start this one with Kelvin. What went wrong for Tortorella in Vancouver, and do you think there's any scenario where it could have worked there with him?
Well, first off, it started at the GM trading away 2 number 1 goaltenders in the NHL, but he still had Luongo until the trade deadline, and they were still pretty terrible. And their players' ice time was up, and their productivity on the ice went down. And that's kind of the theme with Tortorella as a head coach, is the ice time is up, but the productivity is way down, and that's what happened with Vancouver. Their productivity was just awful. I mean, yeah, Zach Cassian turned it on the last couple weeks of the season to try and keep them relevant, but the final week they were just gone. Their Sedins were hurt on and off throughout the year. That didn't help. But Tortorella really went in there, and I don't think that city embraced him as the head coach after he got fired from New York to begin with. And I think he was set up to fail, just like D'Antoni in L.A. was set to fail one way or another. But Tortorella will get another job. It's just a matter of where and when.
Yeah, so Michael will swing this one over to you because Vancouver still certainly has a lot of talent, and they've got a high draft pick to work with now. But now their goaltending situation is a lot worse. They've got young Swedish guys, Eddie Halak and Jakob Markstrom. So there's something to work with there. But who are some of the guys you think could be the one to fill the gap there?
Well, first off, I thought that Tortorella started to begin with. I mean, it was stupid. You're going to take a guy who is borderline drill sergeant when it comes to, and not like, Navy drill sergeant. This guy is borderline Marine Corps drill sergeant when it comes to his coaching style. He's very emotional, I'll give him that, but I've never been a John Tortorella fan whatsoever. I don't think a lot of players in today's NHL respond to that type of coaching anymore. This isn't, the 1970s, the 1980s. The style of the game has changed, and as has the coaching. Yes, he will get another job. Will it be in America? I don't know. He may have to go to Europe for a year or so, like a couple of guys. I think Guy Boucher did that. He may have to pull Guy Boucher and go over to something. Yes, they still have talent. Obviously, the Sedins are getting up there in age, but they're still the Sedins. Ryan Kessler is the wild card here because you don't know if he's going to leave or not. Yes, you've got a high draft pick. I think Kevin Bieksa is, injury prone, if I'm not mistaken. Somebody on that back end is not healthy. They might want to address that. But the cupboard is bare when it comes to prospects. When you look at through Utica, aside from Nick Jensen, the Danish winger, there's not much there. I mean, they've got like some 18-year-olds like Bo Horvat, that eventually will be very talented NHL players, but they're 2-3 years away. So if they can hit if Trevor Linden can come in, hit a home run in this draft, be it maybe bringing in Thatcher Demko from Boston College to solidify him between the pipes, maybe try to go after a guy like try to go up and get a guy like a Hayden Fleury from Red Deer. Somebody who's going to solidify that back end. Maybe get another scoring forward, like a Kasperi Kapanen, William Nylander, somebody like that. Try to go up and get some of those guys. The point is, this draft, they have to hit a home run, or you could be seeing a decline in Vancouver for a long time.
Yeah, certainly. There's a lot of voids to fill, and general manager also is another one they're going to have to fill, actually. Certainly they're going to – maybe they wait to bring in a new coach.
Linden
Calgary's
did say that's what
their
he's doing.
GM. Yeah, Calgary's filled their GM vacancy with Brad Treliving, who was the assistant GM in Phoenix. So there's still a lot of quality guys out there that are assistant GMs. You look at Jim Benning out in Boston, Jason Botterill in Pittsburgh, Paul Fenton in Nashville. So they're probably going to wait a while to, until they get their GM in place to get their coach of the future. Maybe Barry Trotz goes out there. He's a guy that's had experience with teams with a lot of talented defensemen and a Scandinavian goaltender in net. So, maybe that's the same formula there. Go a little bit more defensive. Guy Boucher, another guy who, didn't really have a really talented roster in Tampa Bay, but maybe deserves another shot coaching at the NHL level. I think, for the Vancouver franchise, they've certainly got a ways to go before they get back to contending. And I really hope they get back there again before the Sedin's contracts run out. And in 3 years from now, Sedin's will probably be retiring when they're at the end of their contracts. Vancouver has the 6th pick in the NHL draft. I hope I'm correct on that. If not, someone pitch in here. And there are 3 power forwards, well, 4 really, in that middle of the top 10, and Leon Draisaitl, Jake Verdon, Brendan Perlini, and Nick Ritchie. And Vancouver needs to get one of those guys because they need a gritty forward with scoring, because I don't think Zach Cassian's really that top 6 right winger with size that they want. Mm-hmm. They got Hunter Shinkaruk and Bo Horvat coming up from last year's draft. I think they'll be better on that end. But they could also add a defensive prospect, as you said, Hayden Fleury. Ekblad's not going to fall that far. But Julius Honka maybe is another guy that they could throw in there. But Vancouver certainly has a long way to go. And
yeah.
Yeah. There's a trade down possibility too.
I mean, I was about to say if they drop down to probably 15, they could go grab a guy like Julius Honka, who's certainly in their backyard in the WHL. But I think you really hit the nail on the head with a guy like a Nick Ritchie, who's a guy that's going to come in there. He's going to be like that solid power forward type, who definitely has top 6 written all over him. Leon Draisaitl, if you guys go forward in there as a center Kopitar-like guy. We obviously see how well Kopitar is doing right now. But this is going to be a draft where the future of Vancouver could rest on the draft right here. With a pick this high, they haven't had a pick this high in a long time.
Yeah, and the only reason they got a pick that high last year was because they traded away Corey Schneider, which, in my opinion, was a really bad move. I think they handled that situation with him and Luongo totally wrong. I think they should have just stuck it out, and in the long run, you saw Luongo get shipped off to Florida, and I think if they had Schneider, it'd certainly be a lot more appealing job right now. But I'm sure there will be no shortages of suitors to play with the Sedins and all the talent they've got there on the back end. We'll move on now because there's another.
Barry Trotz in Vancouver was a nail on the head there, Joe. Nail on the head.
Yeah.
Great shot there.
There's another team close to.
That'd be a really good fit.
Who's that?
I said that'd be a really good fit.
Nice. Yeah, definitely. I think there's a lot to go for on Vancouver. You know, they need a GM and a head coach, and another team that's in the same kind of predicament going into this offseason is Mike's own Washington Capitals. The team decided to fire Adam Oates after 2 seasons, and longtime general manager George McPhee is no longer there. So they've certainly got a new direction to go, and actually there are some very interesting rumors about, you know, Wayne Gretzky. You know, maybe this guy, you've heard of him, if you're a hockey fan at all. Michael, what do you think
Who's
is
that?
the direction? What do you think is the direction they're going to go in? You know, Wayne Gretzky wasn't really great in Phoenix as a front office guy and as a head coach, but what do you think they should do here? Think that's a smart move?
No, I pray to the hockey gods that Wayne Gretzky is not general manager anytime soon. I don't want him anywhere near this team. I was intently when you were naming some of these assistant GMs. I would not be at all if Jason Botterill becomes general manager of Washington Capitals. Granted, he is an arch rival Penn right now, but hey, the guy he learned under Ray Shero. We need somebody like that who's going to come in and give a fresh start to this franchise. Now, that's not saying that George McPhee didn't do some really. All of the things he did weren't bad. I mean, he did bring in Nick. He stole Carl Alsner from the LA Kings, basically. Shout out to Thomas Hickey for going before Carl Alsner in that 07 draft. Really good job there, Thomas.
Obviously the things that he did with bringing in OV and. But the misses were just too great. When you pick a guy like Anton Gustafsson, granted, he was a legacy pick over a guy like Jordan Eberle. And we all know how good Jordan Eberle is right now. And Anton Gustafsson was a wine crybaby who didn't want to go to the AHL, and I think he's back in Europe right now, scoring like 3 goals a season. Just a terrible move there. Joe Finley was another guy. He was supposed to be that big honking 6'9", 6'10", shut-down defenseman that can't skate worth a damn. Picking Josh Godfrey in the second round over both PK Subban and Milan Lucic. There were just two. The misses were greater than. I mean, when McPhee was correct, he was correct, and it was spot on. But he was wrong. The great. But he'd bring in Bruce Boudreau, who orchestrated one of the greatest turnarounds in NHL history, and did some really good things for that franchise. And I miss Gabby so much. I got a chance to meet Gabby when he was in Hershey, and then he gets promoted. A really great guy, and you can obviously tell that it wasn't all Boudreau's fault, as you can see now is evident in Anaheim. But going back to Guy Boucher, I've heard that name thrown around in the rumor mill, along with Peter Laviolette and Barry Trotz. Now, I don't want Laviolette along with Gretzky anywhere near this team. It's nothing against Peter Laviolette. I just saw what he did in Philly, and it didn't work. Now, Guy Boucher would be interesting. He's got a more talented roster to work with than he did in Tampa Bay. He's got playoff experience. He's moved past the second round. And he's been coaching in Switzerland. So, that would be I would like to see him there with Jason Botterill. I think that would, and a defense. Aside from John Carlson and Carl Alsner, get some defense. Because whether it's Braden Holtby, whether it would have been Yaroslav Halak, Philip Grubauer, they cannot stop 38 to 40 shots a night and still expect to win. As was evident, the fact that Halak against Anaheim was short of a miracle, but it can happen every night.
Yeah, we've seen that you certainly need a lot of those top-tier defensemen, and that shortcoming was really evident with Colorado in their playoff series against Minnesota, that they could put up a lot of points, but their possession numbers were just so bad, and a lot of shots were going against. So that's definitely been one of the shortcomings for Washington, is that they never really found that secondary defenseman, whether it was picking up Jack Hillen or Roman Hammerlick or Tom Pody or a bunch of other veterans that they've tried over the years.
Who just announced his retirement today.
Yeah, and that was weird because I didn't even know Tom Pody was in the league anymore. I totally missed that he played in the lockout-driven season for Washington there. Other than that,
he
it's
wasn't.
been 2 or
He's
3
been
years.
so stuck with concussions
that it's been he bounced around. He had been in the lineup. He did a stint for a little bit to try to get back to hockey form, and it never played out for him.
Yeah. So Calvin, we'll swing this over to you now. What do you think is the outlook for Washington? Based on who they bring in.
I really want to see Torch go there, not Tortorella, but Barry Trotz. My bad.
Trotz. There we go.
I really want to see Barry Trotz go there, stay somewhat close to home because he lives in Tennessee, so I really want to see him go there. But to Michael's point, Washington's downfall started when Alexander Ovechkin didn't score a goal for a month. He didn't have 1 point for a month. And that's where their whole season kind of started downward spiral, and that was right after the Olympics where their season just fell apart, and I didn't see it coming. But I want to see Trotz go there and build that defense back up, and he's really good at it, so I want to see Trotz go there.
Yes, certainly Washington's got a lot of talent, and Kuznetsov is a great example of that. They've still got plenty of prospects in the pool. It's a job with a lot of upside, and I think Trotz or Guy Boucher, certainly they would be more inclined to go there than Nashville or Vancouver or any other team that's still on the decline and kind of in the middle of a rebuild there. I think Washington has a ton of talent, and I think the primary problem there is going to be, if a coach can actually get Alex Ovechkin to play defense. I mean, a guy scores over 50 goals, and he still finishes minus 35, or maybe he was even worse than that. I mean, that's just downright awful. I mean, they need to get him engaged. They need to step up to Alex Ovechkin and say, your play is going to set the tone for this entire team. You need to play defense. You need to play a whole game. Yeah, we need you to score 45, 50 goals in a season, but we also need you to play defense too. And I think that's kind of the next step for him as he's, getting through his prime now and kind of entering, his years that he's supposed to be, one of the marquee players of the NHL. And he still is. He's won plenty of awards. But if this team wins a Stanley Cup, it's going to take a total commitment to playing the offense and the defense. And whether it's been Bruce Boudreau, Dale Hunter, Adam Oates over the last 3, 4, 5 years, Washington's never put together a complete team. Any final thoughts on Washington from you guys?
Came close in 10. There was a really close moment in 2010 when we were blowing everybody out of the water, and we kind of got stopped by this guy named Yaroslav Halak, and the Halak Ness Monster kind of ate us alive there. Damn you, Montreal. Damn you, Montreal.
Yeah, that's a perfect
which,
play
by the way,
because
shout out to Garth Snow for bringing in Yaroslav Halak, but we'll get to you in a moment, Garth.
yeah, actually we'll get to him quicker in a moment because right now we're going over to
beautiful.
Yaroslav Halak. The trade wheel just keeps continuing, and he started out in Montreal with that 2010 playoff run that Michael mentioned was absolutely phenomenal. Got his starting gig in St. Louis, and then they weren't, it just didn't really happen. St. Louis didn't have enough, and they decided to boat Halak off the island to Buffalo, and then Buffalo turned around and shipped him to Washington. That's not working out because Washington's got a bunch of young guys in net, and now Halak's going to get his chance to work with the Islanders. New York Islanders don't really have much of anything going in terms of organizational structure, in terms of bright young guys turning into NHL stars. They got a couple guys that are working out. But Halak was sent to the Islanders yesterday, one pick, and now the Islanders have a good stretch of just about 2 months to negotiate with Halak and make him the starter. Michael, we'll start with you on this one because the Islanders just haven't had luck recently in goal, whether it's been Evgeny Nabokov, Kevin Poulin, Anders Nilsson. They just haven't found a guy. And do you think Halak could be the guy there?
Well, first off, I think it's kind of funny because Garth Snow was a goaltender, and you can't find a goaltender, and you were a goaltender. That's like Andy Reid never being able to find an offensive lineman when you were an offensive line coach. I mean, the parody there is hilarious. But I said it. I thought when Evgeny Nabokov went to the Islanders, I thought that was going to be, a good thing for the Islanders and Evgeny Nabokov. But obviously, due to injuries and Rick DiPietro being Rick DiPietro, shout out to Rick DiPietro for that $15 million contract. How'd that work out for you? But I really hope that this is something that the Islanders can build around, because Yaroslav Halak he's a great goaltender. He really is. When you put a team around him, he's a great goaltender. Does he have a defense in Long Island? Probably not. Not really. I mean, aside from Travis Hamonic, no. You got rid of Andy McDonald. You shipped him to Philly. Nothing really there. You had what would they pick, like 11 defensemen in that 2010 or 2011 draft where Calvin DeHaan started it, and then like 10 other guys that nobody ever really heard of. If Griffin, and I don't think Griffin Reinhart or Ryan Pulak are ready to be NHL pros just yet, so that's going to take a little time. But if Halak can kind of weather the storm, it's very possible. But this is coming from the same guy that traded Nino Niederreiter for Cal Clutterbuck. Cal Clutterbuck. What did Cal Clutterbuck do this season? Nothing. 10 goals maybe, right? What did Nino Niederreiter do? Oh, nothing. He just scored the game-winning goal in Game 7 to knock the Avalanche out of the... He Andrew Burnetted Patrick Waugh 11 years later. He pulled an Andrew Burnett and sends Patrick Waugh home. When I saw Nino Niederreiter play in the 10 World Juniors with that Swiss team and Benjamin Kahns, I thought Nino Niederreiter was the best player in that tournament. The guy was outstanding. And it took a move from Long Island to finally say, yes, this guy can play. This guy's going to be this guy's going to be a sniper for probably the next 7-8 years. And the fact that he was playing on a line with Kyle Brodziak, that was kind of a strange pairing to me. But hey, it worked out for him, and it obviously worked out for the Wild. So good for you, Chris Snow, for totally screwing that up.
See, the real kicker for me right here would be, you see Niederreiter go to Minnesota, and he's finally having success after being the 5th overall pick a number of years ago with the Islanders. The real kicker to me would be if Thomas Vanek decides to go back to Minnesota too. They let Danny Heatley go, and then Minnesota just has everybody that the Islanders used to have, and then the Islanders are just left down in the dumps. Speaking of Garcelle, personally, I don't think Garcelle's job prospects are looking very good there, so maybe we'll have another general manager on the chopping block.
How does he
Kelvin,
how does he still have a job?
Yeah, Kelvin, you want to talk about the Islanders? Because they're kind of a mess right now.
We're still talking about the team that's trying to get sold still, right? They're still working on somebody trying to buy that team. And you have Gar Snow as your GM, who obviously doesn't know what he's doing because he's trading away all his talent and he's bringing nothing in return. Like, he traded Matt Molson for Thomas Vanek and a first-round pick to Buffalo. And then he turns around and Vanek isn't going to re-sign there because he turned down a 7-year huge contract. Can't remember the exact dollar amount, like $51 million or something like that.
Yeah, right around the deal he had with Buffalo a number of years ago.
And he turned that down, so he ships him off last minute to Montreal, and he gets basically nothing in return but like a second-round pick and a prospect. And he's still employed Howe. He's got Niederreiter. Mike and I talked about him on Facebook, how Nino is over there in in Minnesota he's going crazy. And he needed the culture change, and I think they're going to see that happen with Tavares as well. Tavares' contract, when it runs up, if that organization hasn't turned it around and Gar Snow's still there, Tavares will be gone. As far as getting back to Halak, real quick, I think Halak doesn't sign there. I don't think he ends up signing. I think he ends up just based on how that organization is being run right now, and he's going to look and see what's in front of him and be like, no, I don't want to play here, and he's going to just be a free agent. And don't be surprised if Vancouver makes a splash to go out and try and sign him.
Yeah, I'm gonna go out. I'm gonna go out on a limb here, and I'm gonna say, oh, we lost Michael again. But I'm gonna say, Halak ends up with the Islanders, but he tries to test free agency first. And the reason behind that is that there are a lot of starting caliber free agent goalies that could be hitting the market, and there just aren't a lot of jobs. You look at Ryan Miller, whether he decides to stay in
Miller
St. Louis or try to look
Miller
somewhere
turned
else.
down a contract from St. Louis.
Yeah, they're working on some stuff, but I don't see where else Miller could go that he could really be a starter that would be any better than St. Louis. Jonas Hiller is another guy who's an unrestricted free agent. Anaheim's got Frederick Anderson and John Gibson. They've got two great young goaltending prospects, so I really don't know.
That's where Miller wants to go, is Anaheim.
Yeah, Miller would love to go to Anaheim, but when you got two young goaltending prospects like that, why would you shell out $6-7 million a year to a guy who's going to be 34, 35, and just isn't any better long term really?
You bring him in because you'd bring Miller in just for the playoff experience.
Michael, you got
don't want to
something
go
on
into
that?
the young ones.
I want Captain America Ryan Miller in our nation's capital. I said it. We don't have the money for it, but it'd be great. Because, like Calvin said, playoff experience is there. Besides,
He did
why
choke
not,
this year.
man? He's Captain America. Well, yeah, but that
Yeah,
wasn't all.
the
that
Blues had
wasn't
a
all
lot of
his
problems
fault.
going on.
That wasn't all his fault. And then that's another thing. When we talk about all these coaches leaving, Ken Hitchcock's job could be. It's not as secure as a
certainly.
lot of people.
Yeah.
It's not as secure as a lot of people think because this Blues team, going back to last season when LA ends up, I think, or 2 years ago when LA won the Cup. Was it 2 years? 3 years? Almost 3 years ago. When LA won the Cup, there was I think 2-0 St. Louis, and then LA wins 4 straight, and then I think that the same thing happened last year or something. And then
Look
this
at
year with Chicago.
This year was identical. Everything was identical until Game 6.
The first 5 game results between LA last year and the first round in Chicago this year. That was actually really trippy for me to see that.
It was.
Yeah.
I was like, you got to be kidding me! If it would have ended up Game 6 would have been like that, I would have been shitting my pants.
And
But yeah,
like,
Todd,
fairly,
Todd McClellan's another guy. We were talking about it before the show started. The Sharks need to get that stick out of their logo because that's what they're choking on. Just hang them high, man. When you have a team like Joe, when you got guys like Joe Thornton, Joe Pavelski, Logan Couture, granted you didn't have Thomas Hertl throughout, he missed 35, 40 games, but you had him in the playoffs. Losing Mark-Edward Vlasic did suck. But when you got a guy like Antti Niemi, who's, if not an elite goaltender, he's definitely on that second tier, just pushing up there to elite status, and you lose 3 games to none. You've done something only 3 other teams have done, and that's choke when you've gone up 3 games to none. Something's got to give. Todd McClellan is a fantastic coach. I'd like him in Washington. I think it'd be great to see what Alexander Ovechkin and Todd McClellan can do together. But when it comes to the playoffs, he just can't cut it.
Yeah. Someone in San Jose's got to learn the Heimlich maneuver because that team is choking quite a lot lately, and I think it'll be Todd McClellan getting choked out of his job there. Funny little joke. It's certainly going to be a fun off season because there's so many general manager vacancies, so many head coach vacancies. I think the coaching changes in front office is going to be a lot more exciting than what happens in terms of player personnel because we saw what happened with free agents last year. Guys like Nathan Horton, David Clarkson signing big contracts, just not looking too good at all with either of their teams.
The Horton deal was all right. Had he played the whole season, I think it would have been a little bit better for Columbus. But
he'll certainly play a bigger role now that Marian Gabourik's in Los Angeles or elsewhere. But it's certainly going to be a pretty crazy offseason. But point is, we've been talking for about a half hour here, and we still got playoffs. So we're going to hop back into that because second round's underway after a big double overtime game last night. Montreal and Boston. Game starts with PK Subban scoring a goal for Montreal with Matt Barkowski in the box. Second overtime rolls around. Guess how the game is won? PK Subban power play goal with Matt Barkowski in the box, both ways. Start of the game, end of the game. Pretty poetic. Montreal's up 1-0. But obviously we all know Boston, won the President's Trophy. They've got an incredibly deep roster. Let's start with Kelvin on this one. We're just going to go run through all the series here, but we're going to start with Montreal-Boston. Who do you think comes out of this series? How many games going to happen here?
All right. I have the X factor for that series is Corey Price. What he does in net is going to determine how well and how far Montreal goes into this series. I have Boston winning it in 6 right now, but Corey Price is the key to that, along with PK Subban. He has to continue scoring because in the Tampa Bay series before this one, Tampa Bay didn't have an answer for PK Subban, and in Game 1, Boston didn't have an answer for him either. He scored 2 goals in Game 1, including the game winner in the second overtime, which I called at the bar. So I have Boston winning it in 6.
Yeah, Boston's a pretty solid team. Michael, what do you think? Do you agree that Boston's going to find a way to come back and win this series?
I do, but I think it's going to take an extra game. I mean, as a hockey fan, how do you not want to see Boston and Montreal go to 7 games? I mean, this is arguably one of the best rivalries in the NHL, if not the best. There's so much bad blood that goes all the way back to before any of us were itches in our dad's pants. I mean, this is great, made for TV stuff. But I kind of think that the X factor here really is going to be like these third line guys that Boston's got, like Chris Kelly, Daniel Paille. Are they going to be able to get that secondary scoring that's needed in the playoffs like they've done so many times before? It's going to be a fantastic series. I can't wait to see what happens. Maybe there's going to be another Zdeno Chara, Max Pacioretty ordeal. Is Zdeno Chara, in Max Pacioretty's head? How's that going to work? This is going to be great. And this right here this should be Eastern Conference Finals right now. I mean, not second round of the playoffs, because you've got arguably 2 of the best goaltenders in the NHL duking it out right now, in Carey Price, Tuukka Rask. I can't wait. Like this is going to be a great series.
Yeah, bottom line, this new playoff format is awesome. There's so many rivalries going on, even in the second round right here, that I feel like it's going to be a little bit of a downfall, even after this round when we get to 4. I'm going to take Montreal in 7 in this one. I think, obviously I would have said Boston in 7 before tonight, but Montreal coming out and the series opened, getting that 1 win on the road is really crucial. And certainly it's going to be tough for Boston. Bell Center is one of the toughest arenas up in Montreal to play against in the NHL. And I think, Montreal has just as deep a team as Boston right now. And, they've got their young guy, Alex Galchenyuk, who's, still injured. Maybe he comes back, maybe he doesn't. But Montreal's got a real good team, and I think picking up Thomas Vanek has been really big for them as well. Slap him on that top line with Pacioretty and, put David Desharnais in the middle, and that's been really good for them, actually.
And I just want to hear that French guy say, like, I've always loved listening to, like, the French telecast or anything. You watch it on YouTube, you see it on highlights. And he said that dude he goes crazy. He's like a soccer announcer when they score. Yes, the guy goes crazy. It's great. Him and John Walton are arguably the 2 best, color commentators in the NHL today. Like, it's fantastic.
Yeah. Shout out to the Europeans for giving us some good announcers over here in America.
Oh, that guy's French Canadian, man. That's shout out to the Habs up north, man. Good for you guys.
The land of the
I'm
north.
Gonna give you guys a couple
Canada.
players to watch.
Sure thing, man.
Keep an eye on Alex Eminen and Lucic. These 2 players, every time they meet, these 2 hate each other. They hate each other. So I want to watch them fight.
The last time those two met before the playoffs, Emlyn laid a pretty nasty hip check on Lucic, and I was, I'm not gonna lie, I was a little happy to see it. Good old.
If I'm not mistaken,
hockey,
it was still clean.
Yeah, absolutely.
Very
perfect clean hip check. Don't see enough of those today.
And then he was called a monster afterwards for it. Yeah.
But yeah, as Mike said, this is a rivalry that goes back, decades, and this is surely a treat for hockey fans.
This is their 34th meeting in the postseason.
Wow, that's absolutely insane. the winner of this series is going to end up playing the winner of the Rangers and Pittsburgh. Rangers took them 7 games, but they got past Philadelphia, who I thought, was the team that's going to win the series, but the Rangers stuck it out. And Pittsburgh took them 6 games. Columbus gave them a battle, but Pittsburgh was obviously the better team throughout that series. We'll start with Michael on this one. Who do you think is going to emerge victorious in the Metropolitan Division final?
Well, you have to take the talented team here. As much as I hate to say this because I absolutely loathe the Pittsburgh Penguins, Pittsburgh in 6. I think that if Denny Malkin has that monkey off of his back with that hat trick that he scored in Game 6 after being non-existent the first 5 games for the most part, had it not been for a guy like Oli Mata scoring a couple goals, we probably could talk about Columbus being in this position right now, knocking Pittsburgh out. But again, another deep team with secondary scoring coming from the most unreliable, the unpredictable places. Can they break down King Henrik though? That's going to be the big question. Another proverbial goaltender battle in Henrik Lundqvist and Marc-Andre Fleury. So it's going to come down to which goaltender plays the best. I really think King Henrik is going to be a better goaltender in this series, but I still give the edge to Pittsburgh just because of that top line talent. It's ridiculous.
Kelvin, what do you think? Do you think the blue shirts are going to be able to pull it out over the Pens, or you agree with Michael?
I have the Rangers winning it in 7 because I'm not sold on Andre Fleury whatsoever. I don't think he's exercised all his past demons in the postseason. And Sidney Crosby, where's he been? Yet to score a goal in the postseason. I predicted, I said that the Rangers won, after our trade deadline special, I said the Rangers won the deal for St. Louis and Callahan. I said the Rangers won it, and it's proved me right. St. Louis has 2 goals and 4 assists in the first series of the postseason this far, and Tampa Bay's ousted in the first round by Montreal in a sweep. And another thing with Lundqvist, he's 3rd in the first round. He's 3rd best goalie behind Tuukka Rask and Kumber. I can't remember where he plays for, but yeah.
Darcy Kemper for Minnesota.
Darcy Kemper, yeah.
Yeah. He has, and Lundqvist is a .957 save percentage and 5-on-5 in the postseason. That's 3rd best, behind only Rask and Kumper from Minnesota. So
that's amazing.
And Andre Fleury, I'm not sold there. And the Pittsburgh Penguins, Crosby hasn't scored yet. Their other Letang hasn't been on the board, so I just don't know if they're going to be able to sustain the firepower that the Rangers are going to throw at them. So I have the Rangers winning it in 7.
Yeah, you know what? I really like what Alain Vigneault's done with the Rangers throughout this season, and I actually have them in the Stanley Cup Finals for the Eastern Conference.
Oh.
So yeah, we made those predictions in our little group before the season started, or before the postseason started, rather. And this
yeah, those predictions went out the window.
I totally agree with a bunch of things that Kelvin said right there. Marc-Andre Fleury, you know he's bound to choke it up in the postseason, just like the San Jose Sharks are. And I don't really feel that confident in Pittsburgh's depth this year. They picked up guys like Lee Stempniak and Marcel Gottsch at the trade deadline, but those aren't guys with postseason experience like they're used to having. And on defense, I think they're very young and still up and coming. I think any year that Nathan McKinnon isn't running away with the Calder Trophy, I think Oli Mata would have won this year in a landslide. I think he's been absolutely phenomenal in all aspects for Pittsburgh this year. But I just don't think the pieces are going to fall right for Pittsburgh this year. I think the Rangers are going to take this one in 5 games. I think they're going to shock a lot of people. Martin St. Louis, like Kelvin said, certainly has been a big piece for them. Their defense is stellar this year, and Lundqvist is going to bring his A game. You know that. I think the Rangers are going to shock a lot of people here in this series, and I really think they're going to bounce Pittsburgh. Maybe it doesn't happen that quickly, but I think they certainly have a very good shot here. and I think they match up very well against Montreal or Boston, whoever wins that series. But we'll move on over to the
Well,
Western
hang on, one more
Conference.
thing about this thing.
Well, real quick, Kelvin.
I don't like the fact that this is the only series that has a back-to-back game. There's a back-to-back game in this series, and I believe it's game 4 and 5 are back-to-back. They don't get a day off in between every other series. There's at least one day in between every game.
Yikes! So that'll be a swing going from New York to Pittsburgh on back-to-back nights, and surely that'll be pivotal too. So really, whoever comes out with these first 2 games in Pittsburgh, that'll be a big swing for the series. We'll try to wrap this up a little bit here. Over on the Western Conference, certainly a lot of people shocking the world. Minnesota kind of, people had ridden them off with Colorado and, all their flashy scoring, but Minnesota really came up big there, hanging around in Game 7, taking over the Avalanche. And LA, as we talked about earlier, massive comeback from down 3-0 against the Sharks, and they came back. So we got Minnesota taking on the Blackhawks, who beat the Blues in 6 games. And LA will be starting out in Anaheim against the Ducks. So we'll start here with the Minnesota-Chicago series. 2 teams from the Central Division. Michael, who do you think takes it home between the Wild and Blackhawks?
Well, unless Minnesota surprises, shocks the world, and pulls an LA out of the 8th seed, Chicago in 6. I admire the fact that this Minnesota team has found it. Give credit to the surgeon, Jared Spurgeon. And I had to take that from Spurgeon, the surgeon Wynn, who played in Cleveland a little bit. But, for finding that top corner against Semyon Varlamov, who chokes again in a Game 7. Thank you for that, Semyon. We remember that fondly. But this Chicago team is just too talented. You've got Jonathan Toews, who's a Selke finalist. You've got Patrick Kane, who needs no introduction. Brandon Saad starting to find his game. Marcus Kruger. And this guy named Corey Crawford. I don't know if you've ever heard of this guy.
Yeah, maybe. What position did he play? Is he a defenseman?
No. But speaking of defensemen, there's this dude named Duncan Keith. I don't know if you guys know him. He's some sort of Norris Trophy finalist. He's supposed to be pretty good.
Never heard.
And Joe Quenneville has just got this team in tip-top shape. The fact that they were able to find their game, they weren't rattled after that 0-2 fall in St. Louis. It speaks volumes about this team. This team's been here before. They know what to do, and they're going to get it done against Minnesota. Yeah,
Kelvin, what do you think? I think obviously Chicago is going to be the heavy favorite here, but do you think Minnesota could pull off the upset?
Yep, and here's why. I hate regular season stats. I'm going to throw it out there. Minnesota went 2-1-1 against Chicago this year in 4 meetings. They acquired Matt Molson at the trade deadline from Buffalo. They have Jason Pominville, Zach Parise, Suter, and like I mentioned before, their goaltender is the second best right now in the first round in 5-on-5. With a .959 save percentage in 5-on-5 situations. So just because it's Patrick Kane and all that, like Patrick Kane's there, Crawford, Duncan Keith, Tau and all that stuff, or in Chicago, yes, but don't write up.
Yes, certainly not going to write off anybody. Chicago,
and
obviously.
The big thing is Darcy Kemper
defensive goal scorer. They're gonna hang. This is gonna be a series.
Yeah, absolutely.
They're gonna hang.
Darcy Kemper, he did get hurt there at the end of the Game 7, and Brzgalov came in, so that'll be interesting to see.
I did read an article last night saying that they're unsure if he's going to be able to start Game 1, and he's going for tests today, an MRI again. But if he's out, I give it to Chicago. But if he finds a way to only miss 1 game, I have Minnesota in 7.
Yeah, I'm going to go out on a limb here. This is a 7-game series, regardless of who's in net for Minnesota, because I love the way the rest of their team is constructed. They have the star power at the top with guys like Zach Parise, Mikko Koivu, Jason Pominville, and Matt Molson. They've got a couple of young guys Michael Granlund and Charlie Coyle, and you add in guys like Nino Niederreiter, that's a core that's really going to be strong for years ahead in Minnesota. And Ryan Suter on the back end, you've seen Spurgeon. Jonas Brodin's a guy that was a little bit quieter this year, but he's a real savvy defenseman. I love the way Minnesota. Nate Prosser too.
Yeah.
Any relation there, Michael? Or
I claim him as a distant cousin.
Yeah. Honestly, I love the way Minnesota's built up. But as we saw in that Blues series, when Chicago turns the light on, they're like Pittsburgh, they're like Los Angeles. Nobody's beating them. I'm going to take Chicago in 7 in this series. I think Minnesota's certainly going to give them a battle, and I give all the credit in the world to Mike Yeo for turning this Minnesota team around. I think they're only a couple players away from really being a Stanley Cup contender. But Chicago in 7 I'm going to take for this one. And then we got one more series here right at the end. The LA Kings versus the Anaheim Ducks. Huge rivalry. These guys are going to be going at it. Kelvin, who do you think is going to take this one home?
I want to shout out, this is the first ever in professional sports where a city-in-city playoff series is happening. It's never happened before between any team in LA. It's never happened. The Dodgers and Angels have never met in the World Series. The Lakers and Clippers have never met in basketball. And these two have never met in the postseason, and now it's finally happening. I'm really excited for it. Jonathan Quick seems to be the Jonathan Quick of the Stanley Cup playoff run that they went on, so I'm just going to go out and say it, that LA wins it in 5.
Wow. That's bold. And, Anaheim, do keep in mind, Michael, that their coach is Bruce Boudreau. So certainly they've been a better team, but does Anaheim have enough to push them over the top? You think Anaheim wins the series?
Well, first off, I think the Yankees and Mets met in the 0-1 Subway World Series. So, I mean...
Yeah, they did. That's why I changed it back to LA.
It hasn't happened in L.A., but, it did happen in New York. But, I kind of feel like if... I want this to go 7 games. I mean, I know we keep talking about Game 7 this, Game 7 that, but Game 7 is the most exciting. It's the most exciting game in the sports world. And how do you not want this to go to Game 7 with these two teams? I mean, they battle it out for California supremacy. Who would have thought that California would have 3 of the best teams in not only the Western Conference but in the NHL? A non-traditional hockey market has produced, talented young guys like an Emerson Edom who plays in Anaheim. But I like to think the fact that a guy like it was really cool to see a guy like Tanner Pearson and Tyler Toffoli, guys like these young guns that LA has contribute in that Game 7. And that comes from Manchester. I mean, those guys played together with the Monarchs, and team chemistry was built there. As much as I really want to give this to LA,
and I really do, because I am, if there's any player that I like along the same level as Alexander Ovechkin, it's Anze Kopitar. I have been a huge fan of this guy ever since he came in the league. I really want him to get another cup, but this Anaheim team is too talented up front. When you've got a Corey Perry, a Ryan Getzlaf, and they're trying to win one for Timu, and it seems like, and I really want them. I want Timu to get a cup. I'm not gonna lie. I mean, alongside of Jaromir Jagr and Marty Brodeur, these are the guys that we grew up watching. We grew up watching a Timu Solani. We remember when Timu Solani came to Anaheim for the first time. We remember when Timu went to Colorado with Paul Correa. It was the only thing that needs to happen now is Timu needs to go play in Winnipeg. He needs to finish his career in Winnipeg. That would make everything just full circle and all right in the world. Anaheim in 7, and I hate to do that. I hate to do that to Kopitar, but Anaheim in 7.
Yeah, I really want to be with you on the Anaheim boat. Shout out to Pro Hockey Talk writer Joe Yurden, who I'm pretty sure is Timu Solani's biggest fan ever. I'm going to say I really want to give this one to Anaheim, too. I love Ryan Getzlaf and Corey Perry, the way they play hockey, but I have to give this series to Los Angeles, and it's for one simple reason, because I don't believe in Anaheim's goaltending. And I think it's a lot of the same problems that Washington had for a lot of years they were in playoffs. But Anaheim has the uncertainty between Jonas Hiller and Freddie Anderson, and I think I don't think either of those guys is really going to be the one to carry them to the top. I think LA, it's certainly seeming eerily reminiscent to when they won the Cup a couple of years ago, that this is a team that finally has put all the pieces together. You saw Marion Gaborik come in and up on that top line, Kopitar and Williams. We've seen Tanner Pearson and Tyler Toffoli coming in down on the lower lines. They're providing that scoring depth, and I think both of them have pretty bright NHL futures. And Jonathan Quick is playing like Jonathan Quick. LA is just as complete of a team as the NHL has. And, I thought I said the same thing about St. Louis. So, maybe they fall, they could certainly fall as well. It's the NHL playoffs. Anything can happen.
And I think the funny thing about all this is, the year that Jonathan Quick and Jonathan Bernier were both drafted by LA, Jonathan Bernier was a first-round pick. I think it was like 11th overall. And Jonathan Quick was a third-rounder. I think he was 87th overall. Jonathan Quick has a Stanley Cup. Jonathan Bernier was shipped out. It's kind of funny how things work out sometimes.
Yeah, certainly. And also to piggyback off another one of your points, I really hope Anze Kopitar wins the Selke Trophy.
I do too. I want him to win the Selke.
It could certainly be an easy decision to, just give it to Patrice Bergeron, who, Patrice Bergeron deserves it in every right. He's arguably, him, Jonathan Taves, and Kopitar, and Ryan Getzlaf too. You could even throw in there. They are the elite tier of two-way centers in the NHL, and all four of those guys really would be deserving of the Selke in their own right. But Anze Kopitar has been so underappreciated throughout the NHL for so long, and outside of him, Drew Doughty, Jonathan Quick, that's the trio right there, and Dustin Brown, the captain too.
And Drew Doughty's 24.
Yeah,
and
Drew
he's
Doughty.
Already that good.
Drew Doughty's really coming into his own, and he could challenge Duncan Keith, Shea Weber, those guys for the Norris Trophy certainly. But I think LA has an
Once Zdeno
awesome
Chara
team.
retires.
And Zdeno Chara, man, he's on the downfall. I would never give him the Norris Trophy again, given how much his skating has declined, and
I don't see how he's a finalist this year, to be honest. But
it has to be name recognition. Every time I've gotten to watch Chara probably 6 or 7 times this year between him coming to Buffalo and watching on TV, and his skating is just going downhill so fast. There's guys getting around him like nothing, and the only thing he has left is his length and his smarts, and that'll get him along for another 2 years or so. But I think that's really going to be it for him. Getting back on topic here, LA in 6 games, certainly they're the better team, I think, between Anaheim and the Ducks are certainly right on track. They just need a couple more pieces, I think. Maybe all it takes is development from some of their young defensemen. Cam Fowler's certainly come into his own. Hampus Lindholm and Sammy Vatanen have both been, very good in their own rights throughout this year.
And shout out to Nick Bonino, man.
Shout out to Nick Bonino.
Nick Bonino
really looks like
great. That's one of those players who say, no matter what team he plays for, you got to respect that guy, man. 20-something goals out of nowhere.
Big time. Yeah, Nick Bonino is really emerging as that kind of second center, which Anaheim certainly needs. But you just look at LA. They're just way too well constructed of a team. Dean Lombardi, Daryl Sutter, they've got everything going right now. I think LA is really looking like one of the teams to beat throughout the 8 left. That you could be saying these guys really might win it. So I'm gonna take LA in 6 here over Anaheim, and we'll see how this second round plays out, because hopefully we get a couple more Game 7s. Wednesday, just all the action was absolutely phenomenal, and I can't wait to see what this round holds. But we'll be back next weekend, hopefully, with Kings of the Rink. We're going to sign off here. You can check out our website. It's sports-kings.com/aroundtherink. You can find us on Twitter at @ATRSportsKings. Signing off for this week, I'm Joe, and keep enjoying #because it's the cup, everybody.